I'm going to show you how I easily painted this MDF record stand, but first, let's build it. So let's talk about MDF. I have a love-hate relationship with this stuff. I mean, it's cheap, it's readily available, it comes in all different sizes, quarter inch, half inch, 3/4 inch. Sheet sizes can be anywhere from a 2x4, 4x4, 4x8, whatever. They got it all. The downside is it's a little bit on the heavy side, which could be a plus or a minus, and it is really, really dusty to cut. And then as far as painting, there is a couple of little things you need to know to get a good paint job. So that's what I'm here to talk about. Sanding is one of the most important parts of painting MDF. The edges is where the problem comes in, but we'll get back to that. This was a simple cabinet build, but because MDF is so easy to work with, I was able to get this glued up in just a few hours. In this shot, I'm using 180 grit sandpaper. Now I'm doing this to clean up the glue squeeze out and to even up all the mating surfaces. Once I'm done with that, I can switch over to 220 grit sandpaper. The faces of MDF are really easy to sand. You can pretty much do one single pass and everything will be really smooth. The edges, on the other hand, no matter how much you sand, it will leave you with sort of a fuzzy texture. And this requires for you to have sort of a bonding agent. The solution to this is Zinsser's shellac based primer. Now this is the spray can version of this, and the reason why I'm using this is to get into the hard to reach corners, but this really didn't work out that well due to a clogged cap. So I'm going to show you an alternative to this later in the video. For the rest of this build, I'm going to switch over to the brush on version of this product. The reason shellac based primers work so well with MDF is because they lack water. This causes the primer to dry really fast, reducing the amount of raised grain you would get with water based products. This also acts as a bonding agent for the fuzzy edges. As you can see, I'm not using anything fancy to apply this, just a simple foam roller. Now this stuff is thin, so you're probably going to have some drips, but that's okay because we're going to sand this later. The alternative to using the spray can is using these cheap foam brushes. Now, I didn't sand this until a few days later just because I had a couple other projects to work on, but I would say you're good to go the next day. Oh, and by the way, I stepped up to 320 grit sandpaper to sand the primer. This stuff sands really easy, so be careful not to burn through it on the edges. It's probably going to happen, but that's okay. You can fix most of it when you do your paint coat. I'm using threaded inserts to attach these hairpin legs, so I decided to drill the holes before I do paint, just in case we ran into any problems. It's going to be much easier to make repairs. For paint, I'm using Behr's Cabinet and Trim Paint. This is my first time using it, but from my understanding, it cures harder, which is going to give you a more durable surface for areas that's going to be touched a lot. I'm using my HVLP sprayer to apply this, but this paint is designed to be brushed and rolled on, so don't think that you need one for your application. For everybody that owns an HVLP sprayer, this paint is thin enough to run through a 1.8 nozzle without thinning. I did 3 coats of this paint, so if it feels fuzzy in those spots where you burn through the primer, you can use a maroon Scotch-Brite pad to lightly sand in between coats. If this helped you out, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you subscribe. But if you have any questions, put them down in the comments, and I'll catch y'all on the next one.